Some photographers pursue clarity through precision. Others find it in ambiguity, gesture, and mood. Frank Jackson's photographs invite us into that latter space, a place where meaning isn't handed to you, but suggested, felt, and discovered. For over 3 decades, Frank has created images that resist easy categorization. His black and white work reveals a deep reverence for shadow, shape, and silence. There's no chase for spectacle in his photographs, only presence, patience, and a kind of visual haiku. Rooted in a background that includes illustration, fashion, and fine art, Frank brings a painter's eye to the photographic frame. His work doesn't aim to explain, it aims to evoke. He believes in photography not as performance, but as meditation, not as proof, but as a question. This is Ibarian X, and welcome back to The Candid Frame. Well, Frank, thank you for doing this, man. It's been a long time coming, getting you on the show. And I really enjoyed the brief conversation we had during the Inglewood Photo Festival. But I'm glad to have a proper sit down with you. Yeah, because I've long admired your work since Renzi and a couple other photographers turned me on to you. You know, your work is quite striking, as well as your story. So much of your work revolves around, I wouldn't say there's a singular genre that I can put my finger on and say, okay, this is what Frank photographs, which I think is a wonderful thing, that it's pretty diverse. But what was it about photography that you kind of felt, yeah, this has got to be my thing?
I wasn't kidding when I asked on stage. I said I was a failed as a sketch artist. We had people I grew up around that could look at me and take a pencil and go one line, and you were, wow, perspective and everything, eyes in the right place. You said, oh, that's so-and-so. And they were born with that. And then, if they choose to become an artist, they go to schools and work on whatever medium they're going to work on. And so, guys had cameras were bouncing around. My neighbor across the street he was in the Air Force and, went to the PX in Japan. And so he found that I liked photography. He says, here, he had a Pentax from the PX in Japan and a zoom lens. He said, look, you can hold on these as long as you want. Let's go and use it. And before that, my father had dabbled in photography. He had, back in the day, Kodak made a West German-made film camera that had a permanent lens on it. And I remember this thing. It was pretty snazzy. And he was shooting with daylight blue bulbs for color slide, a lot of slides. He did a lot of slides. He didn't shoot print film, he shot slides. And because I have a bunch of them now. And apparently, I realized how much that affected me later on. So I picked this guy's camera up, and I was a little crew of guys we were running around with, and I would see something, and I saw it with my eye and in my head, and I would photograph it. And when I processed it, and I learned how to process film, I processed the film and printed it. It looked just like I saw it, exactly like I saw it. And none of the other guys were able to do that. I just thought, I don't know what's wrong with them, it was just, and every time I saw something, I didn't think, I shot it. And as I said, I didn't have money to have the film processed, pay for it, so I processed it myself. And that really is the secret to becoming a better photographer back in the day. You learn to process your film, you see whatever the exposure is telling you. When you start processing it, you find out, oh, that's not correct, this is better. You make small adjustments in your time, not your tint, but your time, and, then I started picking up. I kept missing every opportunity to get a formal education in photography. And by the time I got to be college age, my father was such a high up executive at IBM, they would have paid for my college. I couldn't get in school because there was no openings. So I kept going, I'll just keep going, And I ended up, I got the job in New York. I was in college in Alabama. And, I told this story on Tucson College in Alabama. And, the counselor there was a black college. And they're trying to help the students, trying to steer the students into a plausible career. They don't want to hear when you say, what do you want to do with your life? They don't want to hear, I want to become an actor. when you tell your counselor, I want to become a photographer or a choreographer or anything with an ographer on it, they're like, oh no, if you don't, you're going to fail horribly doing that. So they try to steer you into, as I said, the doctor, lawyer jobs.
Right.
You get a title, you're a doctor. There were more people floating around with honorary PhDs, and they actually had the nerve to say, this is much as my so-and-so, my shingle, I'm like, that says from the University of Walt Disney. Come on, Donald Duck is not a valedictorian. So yeah, man, I something kept telling me, on one hand, you got something, but don't dwell on that. Keep taking the pictures. So this whole time, I've never stopped taking pictures. I don't take pictures every day, but I always have a camera somewhere near me, and I still use film cameras too. Keeps me honest. It also keeps my digital black and white really true, because I learned how to adjust the images. I've been through all the processing softwares, and I found something that I really like. It's that company DxO.
Oh, yeah.
That writes all the lens profiles. I use DxO Photo Lab and their Nik software. The Nik stuff for converting black and white is one of the best things out there, because you can tailor your black and white in a lot of ways, and my wet darkroom experience, I tell people all the time, there's nothing like seeing a print come up the first time in chemistry. Yeah, it never gets old, especially if it's a shot you nailed, And I said, it comes up and it looks back at you and you just go, wow,
Yeah.
Oh man. It's like sex without condoms. I said it and I mean it. It's, it's true.
Yeah. Well, one of the things grading, right now, most people are satisfied with the image as it's displayed on a screen. But,
yes.
As many people have said, photograph isn't finished until it's on paper. And especially in terms of black and white printing, there is an art to that. I worked like newspapers, and with that kind of printing, it just had to be reproducible on the newsprint. There was no real art to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when I got to see what a really good black and white print looked like, I was like, oh, damn, there's a whole lot more to it than I thought. You've talked about, pulling the film, but getting an understanding about just the art of the print, especially the black and white print. How did that come about, especially since you weren't really benefiting from a sort of formal education? Where were you getting this that, hey, I have to pay as much attention to how I'm making the prints as making the photographs?
Because I picked up them Ansel Adams books. He takes boring landscapes and make them sing. He took the aspen trees. I've been to that spot. Okay, I've been to that same spot, and it's like I know how to do that now because I read all his books. I still have a set of them. They're probably worth money. And he talked about the zone system, and I bought a Palazzi scale. People thought I was a drug dealer. They come to my darkroom with this Palazzi scale. Frankie, I was like, no, man, don't snort that. That's not, that's something called Metol. You buy that at a camera store. You had to make D19. You couldn't buy D19. You had to make it. And in most darkrooms, you could get it was cheap. And it was a low, long, compensating developer. And so the zone systems like this, to this day, I explain to people all the time. I was like, look, digital cameras, light meters are set the same way the film light meters are. If you point a light meter or a white wall, it's going to make that picture middle gray. If you point that camera to a black wall, it's going to make that picture middle gray. The zone system, Ansel Adams he changed the value. He'd meter something, and then he'd adjust his processing. So when he metered a wall, it came out black. When he metered the white wall and processed that, it came out white. And that's why his pictures had depth. So I'm not scientific enough to explain the monochrome cameras. So I'm only going to speak on what I see. Leica loaned me one, and it's a great camera. I had the 510, I think, and I had it for like 4 or 5 months. And I also was using my Sony, and with the monochrome, it has insane detail. If you take a shot with a monochrome and you look past what you're shooting, and you can see detail way in the back of the picture. And I thought, that's wild. And it's got a lot of luminosity to it, but monochrome cameras clip. And you know what clipping is.
Yeah, you're losing detail in the highlights.
And they clip because they remove that filter. And so all the guys that know about wet darkroom printing and DMAX and values and all that stuff, we all set on my regular digital camera. My compensation is minus 2/3, generally all the time. On a monochrome camera, if I see a white wall, I will underexpose that picture because I can bring it back in post, especially in the high-res filters. So say if Seal, because of his skin tone, was standing at 12 noon against a black wall wearing a white T-shirt. I used to get compliments from people all the time when I shot my Hasselblad with film. How'd you get his skin not to disappear? I said, I learned how to meter and process film. But I can do that with a digital camera, The camera just don't do that on their own.
Oh, no. Yeah, you got to have a really kind of understanding because it'll...
And they don't tell. They'll sell the guy the camera, and they don't tell him, you just spent $13,000 on this camera and a lens, and it's going to take great pictures. But they don't tell them, you got to learn to focus it first. Please don't use live view. Please use the viewfinder to take your shots.
And you were applying what you had learned from, the Ansel Adams books, the camera, the negative, the print, into what you were photographing. You weren't necessarily going out there to those landscape.
No, because
you're applying it in your own world.
I did the view camera thing, and I did the landscapes. And landscapes, for the most part, can be boring. You need to be patient, especially if you're using a large format camera. And you need to be patient with any camera using to go to landscape, because for the most part, if you don't have the light and the sky and the clouds, and you aren't patient and can't wait for that moment, and you're not ready, you're just going to have another postcard picture. It'll be pretty, everything might be sharp, but it won't have any ghost or legs, as we talk about. Mm-hmm. That every time you see it, you go, wow, look at that. Like the pictures that Gordon Parks took of the gangs in Harlem.
Right.
And Roy DeCarava's Renaissance pictures. Oh, man. The creamy, mystery, Franz Kafka-esque kind of pictures with the deep shadows and tones. And there's detail, and they're not sharp, but there's detail.
Yeah.
Oh, and you just go, oh, man, look at this. This is it's like eating a bowl of jazz tonality, and you just slurping it up. You're just going, like this, I see Fan Ho's work. And like we talk about Ernest Cole. Ernest Cole's work editorially was fantastic. I keep going through that book. They did a good job when they printed that book back in the 60s. Did a really good job. It's really well done. And he knew what he was doing.
And Ernest Cole, for those who don't know, was a South African photographer. Who
we need to talk about him more.
Who documented apartheid at the height of it.
Yeah, and it's. I'm almost 70 years old. I didn't hear about this man till last year.
Man,
I'm like, and when I saw his work, like I say, I was in Paris in March, and at the Magnum they had a tribute exhibition of his work, and I saw the book that I own, on the table and all the pictures, and I start crying. I'm just like, it's stunning work. It's a visual testament to truth. They don't need titles.
Yeah.
They don't need, I was blah, 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 whatever. I think that I told you what a good picture is. A good picture is you wish you'd have taken it. And you get mad because you didn't. And, hey, and then you admit it. But that is, if you learn to take those kind of pictures, it means people see your work. And the first thing I want to know is who did that. They don't ask what camera you took. Nobody ever asked me what I shoot with to this day.
The photographers you mentioned, one of the things, that links them all together is just their unique visions, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's Gordon, whether it's Roy, they all are really amazing in terms of what they did with the cameras and that they had. because they had the same technology, which is much less than what we have available today. Right? We're very spoiled of what we have like today. But, as simple as their cameras are comparatively, they brought themselves to the table in their work.
Yeah.
And I think that's the journey for any photographer in terms of being able to make more than just a glorified snapshot. Tell me about your journey in terms of kind of figuring out what it is that you were meant to say with a camera.
I found that I can write too. So people that have read what I wrote. I wrote poems and short essays, and I'm honored that, I've got some PhD people going, I didn't know you could do that. And I'm in the middle of a bunch of several things. I was approached by the professor in Holland, but I talked about on the festival, and we're working on a photo book like no other. And I would just call it a book about seeing, and basically the word ubiquity, because the definition of ubiquity is you're present in all kinds of different areas physically, but you're present. You're not multitasking. You're able to move through all these different areas, and your feet are on the ground. You're grounded. And the Latin word for that is ubiquitous. That's on my business card, the word ubiquitous. And I came up with the thing at sea level. And at sea level is being ubiquitous. You're seeing everything. And when you see it, you don't think about it, whether or not you want to shoot it. You shoot it, and then you have it, and then you assess it later on your computer or your or your negative. Because my problem with photography is, in the old days, people wanted to talk about it too much. They wanted to get a think tank or discuss it or figure it. They want to define you. Dan Milner said something. Do you know Dan Milner? He says, you're an oddball. Nobody can define you. And I said, that defines me.
Yeah. That
defines me. And I said, I'm okay with whatever someone says about my work, whether they like it or not. I'm happy with it. I'm getting mad if someone said to me, you suck. I got an emotion out of you. You really must like what I'm doing if you took the time to tell me that. Actually, I exhibited at Calumet before, because back when I did it, if it wasn't analog, you couldn't exhibit. Mm-hmm. They were like, we'll never have anything digital on the walls in here. And I used to tell them, I said, you guys ought to sell ink and paper. You make a lot more money. And now they're making serious money doing that. But someone wrote in the guest book, your pictures are too dark and have too many tones in them. I was like, well, thank you. Thank you. For the life of me. The other thing is, you talk about so back on the book, when I met the guy on the train, that coffee cup project I do, he's the one. When I saw him at his school, he said, we publish books. And I was like, I'm thinking, that'd be great if I could get a book published. I started hand making my own books before, back when the first digital printing. No, when I was hand making my own books with prints, I was using RC paper. Ilford has a satin paper, which is I love satin paper. That stuff is. I was hand coloring satin paper. If I show you those, you'd swear they were printed in a high-end dye transfer machine. I'm using Prismacolor pencils, and it takes the pencil and I burnish the color in, and then I can erase it. So it looks like a guy saw one I'd finished. He said that's a color print. I said no, that's me hand coloring this, and I haven't done it in a long time, but You can do that. I forgot what I was talking about. That happens to me. My memory's going away.
It's okay, man. I'm not too far behind you on that count.
But the book. So he had me do that exhibition of coffee cups and people, places, things I talked about. He flew me there, all expenses paid, to this lovely college town, and 3.5 hours north of Amsterdam. And he's a big deal in the architecture world. And so 2 years ago, calls him and says, Frank, it's Cor. I said, hey, Cor, how you doing? He goes, I want to have a meeting with you, but I only want to do it in Berlin. And I'm like, okay, give me an excuse to fly to Berlin. I had to pay my own. Last time I talked to that man, the sky opens up. So I flew, met him, took me to dinner. He said, I want to publish a book of your photography. And I was like, oh. And he's one of the few people, because he likes the poems and my essays and all the quirky, weird, I want all of this in there, all of it. And he says, I said, wow, that's something I try to talk most photographers out of doing, but I think we can pull it off. It's just got to be done to spring that on people. I think the world is ready for it. It's just got to be presented correctly, because it's not a monograph. I mean, I could publish pictures of uncertainty, the way I shoot, that depicted that.
Yeah.
Despair, romance. These could be separate books. And there's a coffee cup stuff. That's a separate book. But we're talking about a book that shows this all.
Yeah, because you're feeling, when I look at your photographs, there's so much mood and feeling behind them that it seems like a mistake to designate them simply, oh, these are street photographs or these are, environmental portraits or whatever that is. And getting to the point where you really kind of trust that part of you, especially early on, is always a challenge, right? Like we were talking about, before I think the recording started, about, portfolio reviews, right? And, those can be hit and miss depending on who the reviewer is and also the intent of the photographer who signs up for them. But, one of the things that anyone who's critiquing the work oftentimes is really looking for is not someone who's just technically accomplished, who makes a well-exposed image, makes good prints.
Yeah.
Right? They're looking for something that surprises them. And usually that comes from a place of genuineness. I know it's kind of a nebulous word, but it's the best that I can come up with. But there's just something that surprises me, for me speaking personally, when I look at a work and I just go, damn, And it goes beyond subject, it goes beyond the technical. But for a young photographer, finding what that it is always a very sort of difficult journey. And a lot of people don't get to that point. They get stuck on just producing something that's technically, perfect.
Two things. The first thing that's wrong with that is what happens is they have a hive mentality, which means you group up too much. You can't all go out and try to take pictures. You get in each other's way. And there's always somebody in that group or two people in that group that have real vision. And you're gonna get in their way. They may not even know it, but there's somebody around. Whenever I did a workshop at Sammy's, we printed. Everybody left with 2 5x7 prints. You should have seen the looks on these people's faces as they were like, got baptized. All my sins are I'm washed clean. Walking around with a print. Oh, I didn't know the prints existed. They printed, and I would quickly show them how I took their color files and made them black and white. And I just told them, I was like, look, don't let anybody ever tell you that the greats. So like Ansel was always in his dark room. Edward Weston was in his dark room. Bresson didn't process and print film at all. I met his printer. I went to the foundation back 13 years ago, and there was a recreation of a famous show that they arranged for him to be in with Walker. What's his name?
Walker Evans?
Yes, Walker Evans. And it was a gallerist in New York City, and they had all the letters. It was wonderful, and it was all the correspondence, and it was a show, Bresson and someone else, and Walker Evans and some other people. I think Weston and maybe Steichen, I think. And the pictures, and my American friend Chris, who introduced me to Stefan, he knew the printer. The guy's printer, his printer was there, so I met his printer. So, Ansel, I got to hold one of his negatives, and I'm looking at this going, this is almost impossible to print. Yeah. And so the zone system works, but think about this. I read the book, The Print. I saw pictures of his enlarger and how it was made and what it would do. You have an enlarger, a custom-made enlarger with 50 bulbs and a switch for each bulb. And he's doing the zone system too. What? The zone system is supposed to stop you from having to do a bunch of dodging and burning. No, he's dodging and burning. Nothing wrong with any of it. Mm-hmm. Dodging, burning, using farmer's intensifier or farmer's reducer to bring, backgrounds. You could buy a packet of that We call them ND filters. It's it's a powdered ND filter. That's the best way to explain to people that don't know. And he used to sell a little packet of it, Kodak Farmer's Reducer. And if you had a shot of the sunset and the sand was too dark in black and white, you put half of it after you wash it and agitate it, and you can sometimes get some detail back. But I had a 1 degree spot meter. I was doing you take the spot meter and meter all your points. I had an 8x10 camera and a 4x5 camera, and I was trying to get that crazy shadow detail and highlight detail that he has in his prints. And now I know, he dodged and burned. Nothing wrong with that. It wasn't just in the processing. But I found out something. About the time, my film of choice back in like 1980, I was shooting HP5 for most things and processing it in something called Unitol, which was a liquid developer, like 1 to 14, compensating developer, one shot, which is very consistent, and hand processing it. Kodak came out with this new film called T-Max, and they gave me a couple of rolls of it. They didn't have a developer for it yet. So I processed it in Unitol. And I have back in the day, if you wanted to look at your negatives, you bought the best loop you could get. So this is a $500 Schneider 10 times loop. Mm-hmm. This is what this cost. I have a lot of loops. This is one of them. And you put this down and you look at your negatives. So I processed that full roll of T-Max film, and my eyebrows were up here. I was like, I put on Hasselblad. I saw tack sharp, no grain. And I was like, oh my God, look at that. So I switched films. I started shooting T-Max. And then when the 400 came out, I started shooting that. And to this day, that's my go-to film is T-Max 400. And I process it at 200. I overexpose and underdevelop it. And a rotary process and a Jobo, constant agitation. I get these full range, no clipping. I had a client that I was teaching photography to, and he had bought some 4x5 HP5, and he'd used T-Max before. And I said, if you're going to spend your money on a 100 sheet box of 4x5, don't buy HP5, buy T-Max 400. He said, why? And we'd set up a studio at his place. So I set the strobe lights up, and we put the 4x5 camera on. I took portraits of it, and we went and processed the film, and we compared it. And I said, this is HP5, looks great. It's T-Max. He got quiet. The shadow detail and the depth was just, and so I use that 35 millimeter, 120, 4x5. I don't shoot 8x10 anymore. It's the truth when it comes to a full tonal range film. It's got a lot going on for it. A lot of people hated it in the beginning because they processed it in a D76 and it looked like crap in D76. It was like it almost put a Kodak out of business. Guys were like screaming it looked so bad. It looked like mush. I like their 3200 too. I love that film. I'm going to travel with it. I get them to hand process it in Europe. Sometimes they don't have to, but when I say it's 3200, man, come on, they generally do. I have to remember to do that too. It doesn't mess with 400 as much, but I still don't trust it.
You've been working on a series of images revolving around a teacup and a saucer. And,
coffee cup,
coffee cup. And, it really is, people have to take a look at these images to really appreciate what you've done, with this coffee cup and this saucer for as long as you have. Because people always think about, the importance of what you photograph. And here you take something as common and as ordinary as that, and you've produced some exceptional work as a result of that. Tell me how it came about and why it's ended up being kind of a muse for you.
So part of helping me to get good at photography was I started shooting eggs. I'd put an egg in a window and watch the sun change the shape of the egg as it moved. And I'd process the film. And once I got a print that looked as close as I could, I knew I was onto something. So if you take an espresso cup and take the handle off of it, you got half of an egg. That's one. So that's shape.
Mm-hmm.
But then coffee is community. Coffee's international community. A lot of people drink coffee. Some of them, it's a habit and they don't know why, but they just do. And in Europe, it's espresso. In the Latin countries, it's cafe con leche. I've been in Barcelona where they do it right, man. The guy comes out in the white jacket and the bow tie, and he brings your coffee out, puts the hot milk in it.
You're good.
It's just like, So I watched this girl she was having a moment by herself with this cup of coffee, and I was fascinated by all these emotions she was going through. And when she left the cup in the middle of the table, and I took my camera, I had it in my blab with a wide angle lens. She left that cup in the middle of the table, and I have the picture in this book, and it was 1989. I can find it. It's in here somewhere. Yeah, I put it in here. Oh, it's on this side. Yeah. She was going through something, so I started photographing what people left on tables. And I said, wow, this is there it is. This picture. You can see that. Yeah,
okay,
this one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's for people who are able to see it, it's a coffee cup on a small sort of table that you see in a cafe in Europe and shooting overhead. And it's just sitting.
That was in L.A. on La Brea in 1989 at a cafe place called Cafe Ministry, which is gone. And it's right below Clinton near Melrose. And now it's a sushi place, And so I went around all the budding coffee places and I would shoot what people left on tables. And this cup I took from a coffee house in Delft, Holland. That's the same cup. That's the floating cup picture.
Yeah.
Same cup. I was in New York City. I was going to shoot someone's wedding, and I was at a coffee place in New York, and I put this on the table and put my glasses on there and photographed that. And this is the same cup I still carry around and shoot. It's been busted up a bit now. It's got cracks. Like I said, it has cracks and scars like I do. It has lived. That's at Central Station. That cup at Central Station in Amsterdam with a Leica M6. And that's a digital shot of that cup at 5:30 in the morning at the Salton Sea.
Yeah, so you're taking this cup everywhere that you're going and photographing it in different spaces, and it's really improvisational, impromptu, where you just take it out.
I'm still doing it, Yeah, and so the cup was always posed, but cups is never posed. I don't touch. I shoot the trash people leave on tables. So the cup was after cups. The cup came last. So, I still do it.
They come off as portraits.
It is. It's a environmental portrait of the cup in whatever environment it's in. And, I have some famous people holding the cup. I got the two guys that had been imprisoned, falsely accused of murdering someone in Angola jail from New Orleans. Got them to hold the cup. I knew the guy that was the artist that had been in touch with them while I were in jail and did artwork in their honor. And I had one. They were holding the cup one day. They were in a gallery show and they showed up. I asked him to hold the cup, and I told him what it was about, and he held the cup. I have a picture of Gerhard Stiedel, the publisher, holding the cup in Germany. That was an interesting day. I got to spend a day with him. Because I photographed Gordon Parks, and he publishes all of Gordon Parks' books. And I sent the picture of Gordon Parks I took, and they invited me in to hang out. And I didn't, I thought I was in town because I wanted to go buy a book. I thought they had a show. They don't have a show. You don't buy books. You have to buy books online from them. You can't. Or he has shops. I think there's some shops here, but most of the time you get a mail order. Amazon sells his books, and you can get them. You get a great price on them from Amazon sometimes. He publishes Robert Frank, The Americans. Mm-hmm. He publishes that. It's a beautifully printed piece. I mean, when I got it, I thought it was made in just a knockoff publisher until I got it. And the paper was amazing. And I looked at the spline and Stiedel. What's this Stiedel dude? Who's Stiedel? Stiedel. I know. And then the print was the black and white reproductions is on point. And it was $30. Yeah. So I still have it, but yeah, this digital publishing, man, this is from MagCloud, who Blur Bones. And I'm bad about promoting these, people. I don't push it. I don't talk. I sometimes say, hey, here's a link to the book. If you want a book, buy a book. I don't push it. I got to stop this mentality. I'm so used to seeing annoying television ads.
Yeah.
But they work. They work. You need a new pair of shoes. Buy my shoes.
And the repetition over and over and over and over again. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what you're supposed to do.
This episode is made possible by the support of altadinaphotographers.org, a nonprofit organization committed to helping photographers who've been impacted by this year's forest fires in Southern California. Whether it's a lost archive or the equipment essential to their practice, many photographers are struggling to rebuild. Through its registry, Altadena Photographers connects those in need with donors, individuals, and companies to help make a difference. To find out how you can contribute gear, funds, or time, visit altadinaphotographers.org. Every bit of support matters. Early on in your life, you were working at IBM, for a stint, but eventually you transitioned into doing,
went back to photography. I still put the camera down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a job, my first photo job in New York, working for the city. That ran out. My dad was on a business trip to New York, and he said, because I was staying at my uncle's, and he said, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. He said, well, if you need a place to land, he said, let me know before I leave. I'll get you a plane ticket, and you come stay with me and your stepmom. He said, I live in a huge house. Used to be the mayor's house. So there's servants' quarters in the back. You can have that. And, you get on your feet. And so something said, go, and it's probably the wisest thing I did at the time, because at that stage in my life, I would have been chasing photography, and I might have gone down a different path in photography. I would have done the normal thing, which is work for a big time photographer. You get mentored by one of these guys, you work with them, they slap you around. It's like working for a chef working as a sous chef in a big restaurant. You can take the hazing and getting burned, you get to the point where you might be able to open your own restaurant one day, and instead of that, Milner said something else. He said, you've been working in obscurity. I said, yeah, I actually have been. People that met me go, who are you? And I tell them, I'm just a guy that takes pictures. How come I don't know you? I said, I don't dwell on that. I think I'm still used to the era of, my parents were like, don't boast. If you're good at something, let your work show you're good at it, not your mouth, along with children should be seen and not heard, Even if we have 18 of you, you better be quiet in the house. So it's funny nowadays, the kids will do something and then tell you it's great while you're looking at it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sometimes it is and sometimes it's not, and that's okay too, because everything I do ain't wonderful. And sometimes people like stuff that I didn't think much of, but I still took the picture.
Yeah. We've been talking about, your own personal vision, your approach to making the pictures and, to satisfy you primarily. But when you started working for clients, how did you sort of come to terms with that it wasn't just about what you wanted all the time, it was about what the client wanted, and sort of, striking, and not a balance, but being able to make pictures that, took care of what the client wanted in terms of why they were paying you, but also that sort of satisfied your need as a creative.
So this is what's funny. What's really amazing is you get people that your work resonates with them. Next thing you know, they're like, I want you to shoot my wedding. I showed a guy some pictures I did in Paris, black and white, and he was a retired investment banker who had a shop in Soho, and he's looking at all these pictures I did in France. All these pictures, really, and it made Paris look like Paris of the 1890s, and he says, first I want to carry some of these in my shop, but I want you to shoot my wedding. I'm getting married 7 months from now. I looked him in the eye and I said, you going to let me shoot your wedding like these pictures in Paris? He goes, yeah. I said, so you're going to let me shoot in black and white? He goes, yeah. I said, okay. You want any color? I said, because if you want color, I'm going to have to change magazines, and it's going to be posed. He said, yeah. He said, just so let me know if you want color. I'll just change the magazine and do the shot. But he said, yeah. And he said, okay. So I was going back to Paris before his wedding, and I said, okay, I want this much. Send me half. And I shot and I knocked it. They lost their minds. And this was back in the day where there was no digital. So I had 2 Hasselblads, an electric one and a manual one. And I carried it all in a 50-pound bag. I had 4 magazines, and 1 magazine with color, and 3 had black and white film. T-Max never came in 220. No. So, ain't no bracketing. So I processed all the film, and I made them a hand-bound 5x7 proof book of the work of about 50 prints, and I FedExed it to him. And he said, we still show that to people to this day.
Wow.
And, so to say that is when the client likes what you do, that's what they want. You got to remember to do what you did to get them to want you to do it. So if I run to a young photographer who shows me something in a portfolio, can you do that again? If he says no, I said, you better go learn how to do that again before you show it to somebody, because you're going to make your life a living hell because you're going to get these jobs and you can't do it again. So you need to go back and learn the craft of what you're doing so you can duplicate it without thinking about it.
One of the things that you've faced in your personal life is you're combating a long-standing health issue.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me as much as you feel comfortable with, and what role has that played in terms of your ability to do what you do.
The first time one of your friends says, I got cancer, you step back. I don't want to get it. It's just like, it's not AIDS. AIDS wasn't going to bite you either, but I was in great shape. It was 2003, end of 2003. I just did an exhibition in Durango, Colorado, and I was back in LA. It was the end of September, and I woke up, and I looked in the mirror, and I saw a double image, and it was like, I'm here and in here. And it was like, I wasn't a twin. And I started rubbing my eye, and then I looked, and my eye straightened up, and I relaxed, and went zip, just actually straight. And so, driving was oof. So I quickly learned to put an eye patch on, and I could drive then. So I called one of my doctor friends, and he got quiet. He goes, you remember my friend Dr. Garwood? Yeah, he's an eye doctor. I'm going to send you to go see him. So I got in front of Garwood. He's an ophthalmologist, top of his field. He's looking at my eye with a light, and I'm hearing him going, I don't think you had a stroke. And I was like, what? You need to see a neurologist. I'm like, ooh, it's like Dr. Frankenstein, I need more voltage. You need another capacitor. He's like, what? And I left out of there going, oh, man. And so I also noticed some other things were acting up, like my head. I had trouble holding my head about me, and I'd have to sit at the table and do this.
Hold your head up.
And chewing and swallowing. And so about the Santeria religion because you're from the Dominican Republic. I got diagnosed about what was wrong with me by a Santeria priestess before I got in front of a neurologist.
Oh, wow.
One of my friends is a Santeria. She was an old Catholic girl that got bitten by the good side of Santeria. And she's like, Frank, I can do a reading on you. I got to go to a bodega and get some doves first. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? She said, don't ask. I'm just like, oh. So I had to sleep. I slept in some white pants. She gave me this bath in the bathtub. And in the morning, the priest came by and he took some shells, lit a cigar, blew smoke on them, threw them on the ground. And he said, he touched me right here. And he goes, you're going to get through this, but they're going to take something out of you right here. I was like, what's he talking about? It happened. So a month after that, I got in front of one of Bruce's buddies. Another one of his classmates was one of the top neurologists. he allowed me to give me one of our black and white prints as payment to see me. I was very grateful for that, and we stayed friends. You know, he had me not take. I was getting some medicine. I'm talking about friends. I got friends step up to the plate. They were paying for my medicine. I didn't have any health care. He said, "Don't take your medicine that they've been giving you, and then I'll see you." So I didn't take the medicine for a day, and he shot me up with this serum, and my eye lined up, and he said, "You got myasthenia gravis." And my immune system had come on by itself, and it starts flooding your system, your muscles and your nervous system with too many white blood cells. So they make you tired, and your muscles burn out fast. Muscles you don't think about. Breathing, chewing, swallowing. And so I was slowly getting worse. You know, I was like, talk too much or talk normally. Got tired, I'd be talking, hey, I was going to, I'd be like, you wait, 15 minutes later, slowly came back. And so I was afraid to eat because swallowing didn't work, So I remember I was at my studio downtown by myself, and I stepped around a table and my foot caught on the table leg. Normally you stumble, right? Not with myasthenia gravis. Everything, you don't have the strength you had. Leg didn't pick up, my foot dragged. I went face first into the floor from standing position. Oh. My forehead caught me, and I hit the floor. And the first thing, I didn't get knocked unconscious because I put my arms out. I had no strength in my arms. I didn't know I was that weak, and I started giggling because I remember I used to laugh at Dad. Help! I'm falling and can't get up. Get that button for your mom.
Yeah.
And I said, boy, I need one of them buttons right now. My cordless phone was 10 feet away from me on the floor, and I was on my side looking at it. And it looked like it was 100 miles away. And I found out you can crawl on your forehead and your knees to a phone if you have to. I called one of my friends, and she sent her boyfriend to come and get me. Fortunately, I could buzz people up, and my entrance door wasn't locked. So I was on the floor behind the door, and I said, look, when you get to my door, open it slowly because I'm on the floor behind it. And just push me out of the way and come in. So he did that. And then I said, what? No, I said, stand me up. He stood me up and I could stand up. And Bruce, my buddy, he lived in the brewery. And I was in the garment district. And they came from Manhattan Beach. So he told them, hey, bring him back to your place and prop him up on your couch. Don't let him sleep on his side. He might choke to death. And then in the morning, call the paramedics and tell them to take him to UCLA. The fire department in Manhattan Beach took me all the way up to 405 to UCLA, and they took me. And they were billing me, but they took me. And they're the international study of myasthenia gravis. And so they gave me that week $64,000 worth of this medicine called IVIG. It worked. It lasted a week.
Wow, my God.
It lasted about a week. And this was the second to the last weekend in December. So Christmas Day, they checked me out of the hospital. Well, you're good now. You're good. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. So I was staying at a friend's couch because I needed to be watched. And I noticed I was getting worse. And the environment there wasn't good. She was mad at me because I was drinking Ensure because I couldn't chew food and swallow. She was like, it's too much sugar in this. And I'm like, I've lost 40 pounds. You can see it. I can dance through the rain. I was that skinny, literally. Wow. And I said, actually, next time you go to the store, if you buy me a pound of butter, I'll gladly eat that. Anything to put fat on or weight on. I had to get away from that. And so I said, hey, I'm better now. I'm ready to go back home. Can you give me a ride back to my place? And she said, yeah. And then we stopped at Trader Joe's, and I told her, here's some money. Please get me, regular milk and half, and a lot of pasta because I could eat that and get it down without swallowing. And I said, please don't buy me any health stuff. I need something that's going to put weight on me, So she brought me back and she bought me a bunch of health stuff.
So what's the long-term treatment for that?
Oh, so there is and there isn't. What it is they try to get you, because each one of us is different. Everyone has myasthenia gravis is different. There's no two of us alike. Case in point, one of the guys I work with at Transamerica, he got it. He didn't have to quit his job or anything. He said, my eyelids just droop and I get tired every once in a while, but I was fine. Me, I went I mean, I read up online on what can happen to you. They say things like, if you're in the shower and your legs start shaking, turn the water off, get out the shower right now, because your legs are going to quit working. And that happened. So I listened. I got out of the shower just in time, got out, standing up. My legs said, forget you, bonk. Sat on the floor till my power came back. I got surprised. You know, this is my 21st year with this disease, because I had, so the medicine wasn't working. You know, I'd be okay, and then I'd get bad again. So they started scanning me. The neurologist just said, we scan you because we're checking your thymus gland. It's here. It's over your heart. It's supposed to be dormant after you're a certain age. When you're young, it helps you fight diseases with your immune system. We can see it. So that means it's come to life again, and it's dumping too many white blood cells into your system. It's swamping you. It's swamping the medicine. It needs to come out. Only a heart surgeon can do this. And I'm like, I need heart surgery. I don't have any money. Everybody said, don't worry about that. I was like, I'm not worried about any of that. I said, bill me all you want. Dead men don't pay bills. I was like, and so I was in the hospital, and this young guy comes in, bald-headed dude, looked like he, skateboarder, literally, comes in, hey, man, call me Wayne. And it was Dr. Wayne Hofstetter. He was the head of the School of Thoracic Surgery at UCLA. That's like having Dizzy Gillespie coming to your music school and saying, I'm giving private lessons today for free. And he said, hey, man, I want to crack your chest open like I'm going to go into your heart. But I'm not going into your heart because I don't need to. I'm going to scrape all of this out and get it all. Some guys like to scope, do a little snip and scope, right, and it comes back. He said, I'm going to get it all. He said, what do you think about that? I said, it sounds like you're going to eat me alive. He said, it does sound like that. I said, what are my chances? He goes, I can't guarantee anything, but I think you'll be better off. I said, do it. So my birthday is January 31st. And on February 1st, they put me in the hospital, prep me, crack my chest. And before the surgery, to shave myself, I had to do it like this. Hold my hand. And to wash myself, I'm doing this.
Oh, wow.
Within 3 days, I was shaving myself. One hand, shaving. And I'd lost 50 pounds. In a hospital bed, I got a phone call from some woman that lived here. And she'd seen my photography. Another one that wanted me to shoot their wedding in black and white. And she was getting married in Biarritz, France. And it was going to happen. So surgery was February the 1st. And I said to her, listen, we got to have this conversation in 2 weeks. I got something I got to do. I didn't tell her what. And so I got this surgery, and I called her back. We hashed all the details. And so I said, okay, I got to be well enough to get on that plane, because she was getting married Labor Day, September of that year. And so I got my happy ass in shape. I gained 30 pounds. So I got on the plane. I was 180 pounds. Normally I'm supposed to be like almost 200. I got on the plane, and got to Biarritz with my cameras, and it's still shooting the heavy-ass Hasselblads, and knocked it out. Got it done. I made them bring me my cameras in the hospital, and I had them, he get boiled eggs for breakfast. Yeah. I got boiled eggs, and I was shooting pictures of the eggs. I have a portfolio of pictures I took. I had one of those the black titanium Nikon T28Is. Oh, yeah. I had one of those. I shouldn't have got rid of that camera. I don't miss it. I got good money for it when I sold it, but that camera, I did jobs with that thing. Oh, yeah. You're doing event stuff or weddings, you can one-hand that thing. It autofocused dead on. The lenses were sharp. It was way better than the 35 millimeter version. The 35 lens one. Yeah. The black one was much better improved. It was the 28. I was in Italy, and I put it on a tripod, and I did nighttime exposures of and this picture looks like I shot it with a high-end Linhof panoramic camera. Yeah, that thing was amazing. But yeah, I was tired today. If you saw me on stage, I was holding my head like this. I was doing this a lot in that chair. I was tired, but I wasn't bad. I was tired. I've learned that if I have a bad morning, it's normal for me. But when it gets to a certain point where I think it's 911 time, I do that without hesitation, because I actually collapsed. I had a show at the Icon, and I worked myself into a frenzy, getting everything ready. I'd worn myself out and ignored it. And I had an exacerbation myasthenia gravis moment. And Greg was with me. I was lucky Greg was with me. Greg Hatton, because he was going to give me a ride back home. And I said, man, just dial 911 and get out of the way. When they come here, tell them I'm autoimmune if I'm not conscious. And so I was conscious when they came. I said, I'm autoimmune. I need oxygen. And I slowly went under. I was in a coma for almost 3 days.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And so the day before I collapsed, I found out that they got funding to do a major documentary about my life. And I was blown away by that. But I almost died again from this thing. And they actually brought cameras to the hospital, filmed me and sitting in the hospital. They cheated and did it because I was in a room by myself. And nobody stopped them. They brought an ARRI camera in there. I had good light in there. They got some footage. This disease has given me, it's the best way to put it, a life experience and some skills I couldn't have paid for. It taught me patience because I'm not patient, if I can find it. I wrote a piece about patience when I put it. And the thing about patience, the picture, this book is words and pictures. It's called Pursuits of Balance. That's the egg. And I wrote words to go with the pictures. It's called a visual, Pursuit of Balance is a visual collaboration between photographs and words about finding ways to maintain that balance in your world. Simply put, getting and staying out of your own way. Stop rolling with all of life's punches. Learn to avoid them. Duck. Like the point, the words for the egg is getting to know who you are and what you will and will not do. Balance. So this picture is called Pursuits of Balance, the floating egg. Yeah. The fist that was on the wall, that's overcome, then become. My stepmom was the chair of the nutrition department at a college in Michigan. And I stopped in one of the old classrooms, the old wooden desk. I took this shot of the classroom. The words for that are, a great teacher knows when to stop teaching. At my father's funeral, we were in the kitchen and she got this smile on her face. She said, your dad, it wasn't roses every day, but it was some kind of flowers. And I said, wow. So I took a picture of a white rose and I wrote, a good relationship won't be roses every day, but it better be some kind of flowers. These are, the light is not great, but that's, just self-portrait. Stop talking and learn to listen. That's something I remind myself.
And it seems like the images that come out as, subsequently to that really are, you talk about the lessons that you're learning in terms of just life, but it seems like it's informing the photographs that you're making as well.
On camera, doing a documentary, Greg asked me a question. He said, are you a good man? And I said, man, I can't answer that. I said, I'm trying to be better than I was. I was like, we all have done things we're not proud of. When that temptation comes up again, I choose not to do it and be proud of the fact. I'm trying to do better, be better, that's kind of what it's about. I'm still human, still make mistakes. I do less of things I'm not proud of, but, you can't go back and you can't go backwards and do anything. You can go forward, though. Yeah. So this patience is not a virtue. Real virtue is having the strength to know when to stop waiting. True patience is an art. And that's the picture I did a nude of one of my friends. So this originally was a 38 picture, 38 word, and it was too much. This is just 20. And I'm going to redo it again. I got some new ones. I did the design on this. It's one of those things. See that picture of the hand over the head that was on the wall? Right. On the poster? Yeah. Consideration. The picture's called Wisdom. Wisdom. D-U-M-B. So, I wouldn't have been ready to sit on your panel and verbally discuss what I do and who I am if I hadn't had this disease. Yeah. Because I'm conscious. That's the ubiquity. I'm consciously doing it. I was unconsciously doing it before. There's this at sea level. When you're at sea level, there's no thinking. There's no time for thinking. There's no thinking aloud. You can't think about this. You should be doing it. Do it. Look at it. Assess it. Talk about it. Go do something else. People that sit and write these beautiful artist statements. I went and saw Salgado speak in 2009 at the Hammer. Oh, my God. I was so glad I did. He was as wonderful as one of his pictures. Yeah. Very simple. Simple. Didn't waste words. And he did whatever he had to do to get the picture. And he wasn't, what's the word, antagonistic? He wasn't an antagonistic photographer. One of those guys that, he flowed, man. Just I hope that I'm always accessible to young people of all colors, but especially our people, because I know that I'm in a place where they don't get to see people like me most of the time, especially with the skin color. I know the look, and you show up someplace and they've never seen you, but they've seen your work, and you can see that they're so glad that they knew you were standing there for a while. They didn't say something before they knew you were you. I've been there. I just smile. I've had other brothers come up, man, I thought you were white. I was like, man, that breaks my heart. But I tell people I'm disappointed with America. I'm not angry, just disappointed. Like the loving auntie or parent that looks at a child, baby mama loves you, and the world is watching.
Well, my last question that I ask each guest is that I ask them to recommend another photographer for our listeners to discover and explore on their own, and it can be anyone, someone you've long admired or someone you've recently discovered. So who would that one photographer be?
Oh, dude, I got the young lions, dude. There's a guy named Peacock on Instagram. There's Zai, Z-A-I. Hey, Zai, he's this dude's work. I hate him. I hate them both. I hate them both. I hate them. So I told him, I hate you. Your work's amazing. I wish I'd taken everything you showed me you do. Greg's work, and the thing I tell all of them is slow down.
Yeah.
You can't kick some doors in. Some doors got to open on their own. And when they do,
Really?
It's way better than you ever imagine.
Yeah. Well, Frank, thank you so much, man. It was a real pleasure. Thanks to Frank for sharing his wisdom and visual philosophy. You can view more of his work by visiting photographers.com, spelled PhotographZ.com, or follow him on Instagram. His images remind us that photography isn't just about what we see. It's about how we feel when we stop and truly look. And if you're enjoying our podcast, please consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast app. Share the episode on social media and include the hashtag #TheCandidFrame and let others know why this conversation resonated with you. You can also support The Candid Frame directly through Patreon or a one-time donation via Buy Me a Coffee. Links for both are in the show notes and the website. We've also revived our newsletter on Substack. It's where I share thoughts on photography, creativity, and what I'm learning behind the scenes. Subscribe now and be part of the community. And remember, if you ever have trouble finding a specific episode of the show, download the Candid Frame app, available for iOS and Android, and it's free. There are no in-app purchases necessary, and that's thanks to your support. Our audio engineer is Martin Taylor, who you can find at theothermartintaylor.com, and the show's senior producer is Cynthia Parker. And this is Ibarian X, and this is The Candid Frame.